Welcome to the Cowboy Experience. I'm Eric Sims, your host, and I'm really excited today. We've got a couple of guests with us that I was fortunate enough to meet recently, but I've got Ruben, Espi, as he's better known as, and Nate here from Double R Hat House here in the Austin area, out in Elgin. Am I saying it right?
Elgin,
I'm
yes.
still new to the area. I'm having to learn how to say stuff like Burnett instead of Burnett and Elgin. But thanks for coming on the show, guys. It's awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, it's good to catch up. My lid I've got on was pressed by these guys and delivered by these guys. So it's how I met them. But I always like to kind of start start with this in a space of like, how'd you get into this type of stuff? Like, where are you from and that kind of stuff. And maybe Nate, you go first. Like, are you a native to the area? And then, how'd you get into the Western wear kind of hat business?
Right. So, born and raised in Manor, Texas, which is about 30 minutes east of Austin. I've been with Double R for about 4 years. So pretty good while. Been shaping hats full time for about 2 years. I started, in high school. I just needed a little side job, and my sister actually grew up with the owner's wife, which is kind of how I got into that space. And he asked me, the owner, he was like, if I needed an extra job, just to make some money. I just stopped working at a horse stable in Manor, so I was looking for another job. And when the offer came, I took it. I'd been a customer there for a little while before, and I always thought it was really cool, Started wearing hats and everything, and started there working around on the floor and everything. And I was fortunate enough to do more of the apprentice route, where the owner, Emilio Rangel, he kind of taught me everything I know step by step. So it was a solid foundation, and I worked all through college, Texas A&M graduate, Giga Mags.
All right, we got an Aggie.
But worked all through college, and through that process, I kind of really fell in love with the art of shaping, and I really loved what I did. And when I graduated, I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and that was shape hats. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So been doing it since you were young. Got tired of dealing with the horses' asses in the barn, and decided to deal with some horses' asses in the retail business.
There you
go. That's cool. So you've been doing that, and you've been with Double R the whole time
for most of it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Double R's been a company since 2016. That's when Emilio started it. I came in the picture about 2020. So for the longest time in that time frame, it was just Emilio and his wife. And when she was available, Emilio's little sister, Alina, who's also now a full-time employee. So besides his immediate family, I was the first employee at Double R, and I kind of fell in love with the culture and loved how Emilio did things and stuck with it, and don't plan on leaving anytime soon.
That's awesome. So the OG over there, employee number one or whatever it is, right? Good deal. And then you brought somebody with you?
Yeah.
The truth is, how I got started in the Western industry is I just needed a job, right? I was going to school in Galveston for a little bit and realized that I didn't love it out there. So came back home, being Hutto, Texas, which is 30, 45 minutes outside of Austin. And while I was back, I needed a job. I started working at Allen's Boots in Austin. And while I was there, right, as just a regular boot salesman, they asked if I needed or wanted to learn how to, crease on hats a little bit. And I liked the idea because there's a little bit of extra tip money that people would leave us, and that was always cool. And I was maybe 19 years old when I started there. And the truth is, I sucked at creasing hats. Like they would tell me how they wanted it, and it would leave the store a totally different route or a different way. And I hated being bad at it, the truth is. And I just kept at it, kept practicing. Eventually came across Double R Hat House as a customer, and then as a friend to the owner. I was still working at the boot store, and on weekends or days off, I would go to the hat shop and practice and learn and hang out with him. He had offered me a job at one point, and I turned him down. And then years later, I came back around and started working for him full time. I will be 2 years in October, so it's been really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys met there? Is that how you guys met
right.
at the store? Okay. Yes. And that's the Double R Hat House in Elgin. Right?
Yes, sir.
So if anybody's checking that out, you want to go online, look those guys up. That's where the store is. I can attest to the fact that it's a beautiful store, and we were talking about this before. It's got they get the customer experience piece. Like they create a great energy in that place, and also just a great time when you go in to not only get a hat press, but pick out a hat and learn more about those things. And that was one of the things I wanted to kind of get into with you guys on the show is, when people think of cowboy hats, a lot of them, you see them on TV, and if you pay attention after a while, you start noticing, hey, that one looks a little bit different than this one. That one's a different color. This one's a different material. That one's straw. And then you get into straw hats, there's all these different colors and things like that. And then you get into presses and stuff like that. So maybe first, let's just talk a little bit about, because, one of the things that's really cool is I consider this art. You both mentioned it, like you work on it like you would art, and like any other art or sport, you suck at it at first because it takes time to learn. It's a craft. You both have been doing it long enough to be now dubbed the hat whisperers of the Austin area, maybe Texas. And so, I don't jokingly say that. I told you before the show, I was at church in Lago Vista, brought up something about hats and didn't even tell people who you guys were, and just mentioned like where I got a hat, and they were like, they knew who y'all were. So, the word's getting out on that. But maybe share with us a little bit about like what are the different types of shapes that are out there, and why, like, maybe a little history on some of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, cowboy hat was born out of necessity, back in the Wild West days per se. I mean, guys were out working cattle, and even normal people, there wasn't as much comfort as there is nowadays, with being in the AC and shade and hangout spots and all that thing. So, just like anything, it was born out of necessity, and they've definitely evolved over the years. Like you said, materials, shapes, styles, everything. But I kind of like to break it. There's the cowboy hat look, the Western look, and there's also kind of more of a fashion hat look. You look at guys like President LBJ, who wore the open road forever. Looks a lot different than if you go to a rodeo and see a bull rider, wearing it. What do you think, Espi?
I don't know, man. There's a lot. Plenty of different hat creases. Really, it's what we tell customers is, if you can think it and you can explain it well enough, we can do it.
Yeah.
There are, of course, those traditional hat creases, which is very similar to like what we're wearing today. But then there's also the modern traditional crease, which is a little bit similar to kind of what you have, a little bit wider in the front, a little bit taller on the crown. But yeah, I mean, the shapes and styles, it's really endless. I think is right.
Well, I know we're going to go and spend some time in the store too. So I know that's some stuff maybe we can get some shots of. But like a lot of them, you said were born out of necessity. I always think it's interesting. Like, so the Gus,
right,
which is the sloped, kind of
right,
back, which we always called the bull rider hat back growing up. So like, what was the necessity out of that hat? I always look at it and go like, maybe that's because it was it rained and it let the top pour out. But how did that hat come about?
I think it's important to say back then they didn't really care of the style too much, right?
Yeah,
it was just you just had a hat, whether the hat maker made it or shaped it a certain way. But a lot of times they were just domes, right?
Yeah.
And however the person that was wearing it would grab it, that's how it would shape. I feel like the Gus maybe could have come from just pinching it literally with your three fingers, and after a few wears, it just took that shape.
Right. Just going here with it all the time.
That's right.
So it's kind of interesting. In today's world, we get to see a lot of that through, movies and stuff like that. So you kind of get an idea of like, okay, they weren't fashion statements for the most part. There were some fashion hats back then,
totally,
but not as much as they are today. Where I would say a majority of hats, we all wear them because we like them.
Yep.
Exactly.
We're not out on horseback all day long and ranching or riding bulls or whatever else like some of these other guys may be. But it's just interesting. There's so many options when you're looking at the quality of a hat. Maybe could you share a little bit about what makes a hat? Because people may go in a store and they see a hat that's $100, and they may see a hat that's $1,500 or $2,000, right? So what would make a hat that much of a difference in price? What are some of the things that drive that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll touch on the felt and let you take the straws. But as far as a felt hat, which I've heard some people references as a suede hat, the different colors and the soft, they're primarily made out of beaver and rabbit. It's a beaver rabbit blend, depending on the quality of it. Like you mentioned, there's hats from $100 all the way up to even $3,000. There's a big range, but in the industry, they grade them on a scale with an X. So you might hear there's a 4X or a 100X or all kinds of things. In our store, in particular, our base is a 7X, which is a primarily rabbit blend hat, which is still a really great quality. The beaver starts to get worked in a little bit more when you get into, the 40X, the 50s, all the way up. And the reason why the beaver is so essential is because it's water resistant and really, really durable. If you feel, a 4X hat at a store, it might feel really hairy and fuzzy versus, a 100X that's really soft and smooth to the touch. And the higher X up you go, the more beaver that's in it. A 100X most of the time is a pure beaver hat. So that's going to be, like a pair of really, really nice boots. It's going to last you forever. So all those qualities all play different parts. Most, working cowboys, they like a higher quality hat just because they're out in the elements, working in it. And a lot of people think, well, it's going to be my work hat. I don't want to spend an arm and a leg. But at the same time, you get what you pay for. You can spend one time on a 100X hat and it's going to last you a long, long time,
Yeah, so that's an interesting point because a lot of people would think like, oh, I need like a fashion hat, and then you think of like this must be the Louis Vuitton version of the hat. It's just because it's fancier or whatever else. But what you're saying is like the higher X count and the higher quality really creates a more durable hat,
Exactly.
and a higher quality hat, so that it does last longer, and then it's more resistant in the elements. To your point, where hey, if it rains or something else, then you're not running the issues you did before. Now, how does straw work with that?
Straw, there are plenty of brands or companies that will label their straw hats with an X number as well. In my experience, I've noticed that it's actually reversed. A lower X hat, straw hat, is actually a little bit more durable or a little bit more stout than a higher X straw hat, right? I've heard many different things. I haven't really gotten the full 100% answer whether it's true or not, but supposedly a higher X hat, straw hat, is a tighter weave, right? So whereas a lower X is a little bit looser, the tighter weave almost then feels like paper. It's so tight and so wavy that it's something you really have to baby. But to go about, I guess, the pricing of a straw hat, an average one, what would you say? Maybe about 150 to 200 bucks, and that's now, of course. But really, they're all almost the same thing. There's in my opinion, not really one better than the other.
Yeah.
Comparing it to a felt hat, there's really only one life, maybe, to a straw hat, depending on how often you wear it. Let's say you wear your hat that you have on today every single day this summer. I bet next summer you're probably going to need another one. And that's just how it is. There's not going to be another straw hat that you could have bought that would have lasted longer.
It just gets downgraded to like the lake boat,
That's right,
or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the
that's
river
exactly
hat.
right.
I mean, me, for instance, I always tell customers all the time, I go through about 2 hats a summer.
Yeah.
And that's minimum, everybody makes fun of me all the time, but I sweat a lot, so I'll sweat a hat out in a couple months.
We don't want to know about you sweating, Nate.
And when you're down here in Central Texas, or any part of Texas, when it's like 107 degrees for 90 days straight, you're going to sweat some out in those hats.
Yeah, and like Espi said, just day-to-day wear and tear. Us working with hats, we wear a hat every single day.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a lot more wear and tear than somebody like my father, for example. He wears his hat, maybe twice a month. So his hat has lasted him about 2 years, where like I said, I've gone through mine probably about in 4 or 5 months. And it's not really just the quality of the hat. It's just how you wear it,
Yeah. Obviously, what you're doing in it and everything else.
Yeah, 100%.
So one of the things before we go into anything else, because we have viewers that are not, from Texas, or maybe they're from Texas, but they're not as familiar with Western wear.
Right.
So Western wear has rules in fashion, just like, regular fashion.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And in regular fashion, there's the never wear white after Easter or whatever it is. And, you can wear it until Labor Day, and never wear it after Labor Day or whatever it is. Maybe I said that backwards. Never wear it after Labor Day, right? So in the cowboy world, or in the Western wear world, we have straw and felt.
Yep.
Very similar rule.
Yeah.
And maybe one of you guys can share a little bit about that so people understand.
So there's I guess a written rule somewhere. I don't know. You wear a felt hat from Labor Day to Easter, and then a straw hat from Easter to Labor Day.
Yeah.
But the way we go about it is how hot is it outside? You know,
especially here in Texas.
I remember that one December here. It was 80 degrees outside in December. I'm not going to wear my felt hat. I don't care how nice it looks. It is too hot, you know. I tried it, but man, we were sweating so much I'd throw a straw hat on. But that's the rule.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we just go about what the weather's like.
I just want to make sure they understand that we have fashion rules. We're not just,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
no, yes, yes.
Doing whatever
most
we
people
want.
don't. They may not understand. We have certain rules we have to follow.
You'd be surprised though. There are some, like we have some old time customers that are felt year round.
Yeah.
And how they do that, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's
they're
some
used
old
to it,
timers
but-
that do it, and then like and some people, if it's a dressed up occasion, you
Yeah.
know, like you would wear a felt
Exactly.
That's right.
hat, right? Like if I'm going to something where I've got to wear a suit,
A
or an
wedding, a
event,
funeral, you know, something more.
you're gonna
formal,
wear a
for
felt
sure.
even in the summertime. But you know, due to the heat, you're right. Like it's on an everyday thing.
Yep.
You're not going to put it on, but that may be something of interest to some of the people that are watching out
No,
there.
yeah.
Like, why do these guys have straw hats on sometimes and felt other times? Well,
No, man.
that's why. And that's why you see all these guys in Montana wearing felt year round a lot of
That's right,
times because
yeah.
it's not that hot.
They
Exactly.
can be.
And you know, with this, it has been unusually hot. And to your point, like you know, the seasonal stuff has adjusted just like it has with regular fashion, and you see people extending that straw period further
Yeah.
than it used to be, putting them on a little bit earlier and leaving them on a little bit later.
That's right.
And then you got the guys that wear the felts, you know, late at night and things like that. So, or late at night in the hot season. So when it comes to some different hat sizes and things like that, right? Like I'm sure people have seen you got some hats that are just enormous,
Crazy big.
and then you mentioned the open road, which I wear quite a bit. That's
Right.
one of my favorite hats.
Yep.
And one is just because it's a very practical hat. It's easy to get around in. It's comfortable for me. You know, how do people kind of figure out what size works? I mean, I get like one thing I know we want to get across to people is hats are much like anything else. Like whatever you feel comfortable in,
the biggest
and whatever you feel like your style is, that's what you should. And you told me that when we were there pressing your hat, and you're like, "What do you like?"
There's
And
no right or wrong.
There's not. Yeah, it's not.
You like.
It's what you like. I still let you press it because you know better than me. But, but you know, when we're looking at some of those things with people, how do they figure out like, you know, what's what? You know, what do I go with a ginormous hat or do I go with a smaller hat?
Right. I mean, for us and our perspective and our customer base, most of the time it's, you know, going to be the question of what are you going to be doing with the hat? You know, a big customer base that we have are just the working cowboys, you know, the guys that, and by the way, they still do exist, you know, and there's a lot of them. And we get a lot of them in the shop and they're out working cows all day in Texas in the sun. We even have a kid from Montana that works all over the place. So really, we ask them, what are you going to be using it for? So if you're going to be outside working in the sun, we're more likely to put you in maybe a bigger brim than you might be used to or might think you need, just to help keep that sun off you a little bit better. Whereas if you're just going to be wearing it here and there, or some of the older generation, they like it just a little bit shorter, you know,
Yeah.
nothing too crazy. But like you said, it is all personal preference as far as the crown, which is, you know, the big dome part on the hat. Most of what we have in most places, it's all going to be 6 inches high, which we'll get a lot of people that'll be like, this looks humongous. But I always tell them, just focus on what fits the best and what style you like, and let us take care of the rest as far as the shape.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I would respond back to people like, which one? Like, as long as you get one,
Right.
like you
There
just
you
need
go.
to make sure you have one. Like, it's almost like if you're gonna, especially, I always was joking with my wife when we moved back to Texas. Like, if you're gonna live here, you got to have boots and you got to have hat. It doesn't matter if you're a cowboy or not.
Yep.
Right.
That's
Yep.
right. It's just part of it.
It's just part of like you got to have that in your closet ready to go at any point in time. You know. Anyway, talking about the customer experience aspect of what you guys do, we were talking a little bit before the show, and you know I was sharing with you guys a little bit about my perspective, which is like no matter what business you're in, the reality is you're in the customer experience business, and you were mentioning that your owner has a really passionate view on that.
Yeah,
And
for
maybe
sure.
one of you guys want to share a little bit about how what y'all's take is on that.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Emilio. He's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. That was one of the biggest things when I was there as a customer. I always noticed that a lot of customers to this day notice. You know, he's truthfully one of the most nice and genuine people that I've ever met. And when he started the company and started kind of hiring people on, one of the biggest things that he always preached was that he wanted to find the right people. And by the right people, pretty much, our team isn't super huge, but everybody on our team plays an important role. and we're all people that are similar to us, you know, and we all have to have amazing customer service. And I always think it's a lot easier to have good customer service when you love what you do. And that's one thing about all of us at the shop. I feel like we all really enjoy being around each other, being in the shop, and our customers. So it's just, you know, second nature to be nice, because we love everybody, even the people who don't love us as much. We'll get some kind of rude customers sometimes, but every time that happens, he always preaches us, kill them with kindness, kill them with kindness. And it's that kind of just genuine nature that seeps all throughout the culture of our store.
He's not a salesman at all.
Yeah.
And he'll even say it, like he'd rather not sell you something than say something he knows is not going to be good, right?
Yeah.
And that in itself, you know, that speaks a lot about his character, I think. And I mean, yeah, he's just, you can buy a hat anywhere. Make them want to buy it from us because we're cool, or we're nice, or we're having a good time, you know. And he's very big on that, which I think is great. But
yeah, and I mean, most of our customers, they drive 45 minutes to an hour and a half just to come see us.
Yeah.
And even if we're having a bad day, at the back of our minds, I mean, they're making the effort to drive over to come see us to potentially buy something. So we always try to, you know, greet everybody that walks through the door. You know, hey, how are you doing? Can we help you with anything? And I think that's something that really sets us apart. And I almost feel like it's not really a selling point for us. We just love what we do that much, genuinely, to where it's a lot easier and it's second nature to us. And I told Espi, you know, there's a lot of, you know, stores and stuff that sell hats, and nowadays you can't just sell a hat. You have to have an experience, and you have to have people that want to come and see you. And so I feel like just being genuine and loving what we do and wanting every customer to leave with a smile is one of the biggest things for us in our culture.
Yeah, that's important, right? Like, I think it's a overlooked requirement in business, is just, you know, genuinely caring about your customers and how they feel coming in and coming out. I mean, statistically, when you look at stuff, it's been proven, like, if you can treat people right and they feel good, they're far more receptive to purchase and do other stuff.
Right.
But when that comes from a place of genuineness, of like, hey, I really care, we're really having fun, we really believe in what we do, I think that's what makes it unique and puts it over the top, because it's not being artificially created. It's not an act somebody's putting on. And so it's cool you guys have been able to find something that you love. Right? A lot of people spend their whole life and they don't get to do that, or maybe they only get to do it as a hobby, you know. If we're lucky, we get to find some stuff we love and do it, you know, as a career. So that's great. So people can come in. I can attest, because I came in your store. It was unlike any experience I've had over the years with buying a hat and having a hat pressed. I walked away, you know, waving the flag for you guys, because, again, I've had some great experiences. I've got several clients of my own that are Western wear companies that sell all kinds of stuff, and but going in and being treated the way we were when we walked in that day, and, you know, it wasn't just pick out a hat. There was a little bit of education, which was fun. You know, like, you know, I got to learn about what's best for me, what's going to look best on me, and put my trust in
That's
this
right.
guy.
Yeah, because I remember you came in, you weren't really sure exactly what you liked or what you wanted, and what looked good on you or what didn't, you know. And I mean, I think that looks great. But
I love it.
Might be a little biased.
It'd been a hot minute since I bought a hat, and I just moved back to the state. I was like, all right, I got to get my straw for the season.
Yeah, got to.
And you know, I wanted something cool, and like I said, my friend had come over and seen you guys and bought a hat already, and he was jumping up and down. Like, you know, Art was like, hey man, you got to go see these guys. These are the guys, you know. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
So cool.
Yeah. So so that's the customer experience piece. We've talked about a little bit about the historical piece of the hat, and, like, you know, and some informational stuff on that. So, you know, where do you guys see things going next for you? Like, what do you guys, I know you just got done doing a really big show, which was a lot of fun. I saw it all over social media. You guys drove out to Amarillo or Abilene. I get Amarillo or Abilene. Either way, you're going home with the armadillo.
There you go.
So the show you did out there, you guys, like, tons of hats, tons of people that, you know, you probably don't get to come in contact with, even though you're right, a lot of people drive all the way across the state sometimes to visit you guys. But when you look at that and what's going on with the online community and what you guys have aspirations to do, what do you see happening next? Or what do you want to happen next? Maybe if it doesn't happen, like, what do you dream of happening?
Well, you know, the goal that I have for the shop is I want to start doing more events, more things like what we did this past week. And before Nate and I were on the Double R Hat House team, it was just the owner himself, just Emilio. And he didn't feel the most comfortable leaving the shop, closing it down for a couple of days, just because he knows that there are customers that come from all over to come check us out. But now that we do have the team, and now that we have the talent, I think, being Nate and I are pretty good at what we do, I want us to travel more, and I want us to put our name out there just a little bit more in those small town rodeos, or even big rodeos or big events, That's probably my biggest goal for the shop. I'm not sure if you're on par.
I 100% agree. And like you said, with the online thing, Alina, who I mentioned earlier, Emilio's little sister, did amazing and worked tirelessly with some of the developers that help us get the website up. I helped her a little bit with some few things, but now that we have the website up and running, it's been keeping us really, really busy, even though there's not customers at the shop. And I think just growing that e-commerce, to have people who live in Australia to be able to say, hey, I want a hat from these guys. Let me order one online and we could ship it out. I mean, that's just kind of sky's the limit. I want to see our hats everywhere. I know I'm a little biased being an Aggie, but there's a little Aggie saying that anywhere you are in the world, you can find another Aggie. And I want that to be how it is with our hats.
That's cool.
I want us to be, in the UK or Canada or even just down the street and be able to say, oh, that's one of our hats, And for me personally, because I've kind of worked my way up, starting just helping out on the floor, learning about everything, to now shaping full time and being fully immersed in the industry. It's one of the most gratifying things for me when I'm out and about at a concert or just even at a football game or something, and I look and I'm like, oh my God, I did that hat right there. Mm-hmm. And I know my girlfriend all the time about it. I'm like, babe, look, I did that hat right there. It's the coolest thing. And not just because, they got a hat from us, but I always think it's one thing to buy something once. It's another thing to buy it and use it and wear it with pride, and that's what a lot of our customers like to do. They like to, wear our stuff, put it to the test, and seeing that out and about, whether it's here, I always tell people we ship from down the street to Australia, all over the world. That's where I see it going, is to be able to, anywhere you are, there's Double R present,
That's cool. Any famous people you guys have pressed hats for or gotten to meet doing this?
A few, go ahead.
Yeah.
You have more than that.
So
besides me.
Yeah, right. Besides you.
I'm not famous. Yeah.
Second to you, right?
Yeah.
No. I had the pleasure of meeting Bill Murray.
Oh,
that was really cool.
Yeah.
He was in town for, I'm not sure what he was in town for, but he was just in town and came into the shop and needed a hat for him and his friend that he was with, and that was really cool. He was at one point, should I get this hat or should I get this hat? And I was like, well, I think you have the money for both, and he kind of laughed about it. And he's like, well, yeah, I guess you're right. So we bought both hats. That was really cool. Who else? It's so crazy. The lead singer to Led Zeppelin, Robert Plant.
Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was really cool. I will admit, I didn't know or recognize him at first.
Yeah.
Just because he's up there in age.
Yeah. He's got to be in his 70s or almost 80s.
And he has a really, really large head. Really, like our biggest size was tight on him, which is kind of crazy, because we'd like to think we have hat sizes for everybody, but that was really cool. He complimented my jeans, which I was like, heck yeah, dude, thanks, man. And really so many others I can't just think of.
Those are pretty big, Bill Murray and Led
Zeppelin. Yeah, those are pretty cool.
Mine aren't near as big as that.
Yeah.
But
what about you?
I mean, heck, a lot of, I guess, people who are pretty big in this area, Braxton Keith, he's a musical artist.
Yeah.
He's a really good customer of ours. He'll probably,
and friend.
Yeah. I consider him a friend. We do TikToks together. That's pretty cool.
I want to have Braxton on the show.
Yeah.
So he was the first show I got to see coming back here.
Oh,
really?
Was Braxton, and we went up to the hot spot, and he played, and I was like, man, this kid tore the house down.
Yeah.
He's
fun.
If anybody hasn't checked him out yet, you'd be smart to go download some of his music because he's really talented. So, all right, you got Braxton.
Yeah. A lot of guys that are big in the cowboy community. There's kind of a smaller circle of cowboy creative guys.
Rodeo Cowboys.
Rodeo Cowboys. Curtis Cassidy. He's multiple time been to the NFR. Has had the Horse of the Year 3 times in a row. He's from Canada, which was really cool seeing him come all the way down and check us out while he was in town. And me and Espi got to meet Bo Cooper. He's a young kid. Won Cheyenne Frontier Days recently. Went to the NFR.
Yeah.
And for me, going back to my statement earlier, heck, even seeing the hats I've done on TV, you know, I was watching the Cowboy Channel one day, and it was a commercial for this music festival, and we see Braxton pop up, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
That's my hat.
yeah.
Yeah.
But same thing with Curtis Cassidy. You know, I saw him at rodeo and saw him on TV do all that stuff too. So people like that, I kind of fangirl a little bit about. Nothing too crazy, but
We had a
Yeah.
NASCAR mechanic.
yeah.
come
Oh,
in
yeah?
not too long ago. That was cool.
The mechanic for Kyle Busch, who really great NASCAR racer. I can talk
Yeah.
all the time about NASCAR, but I thought that was really cool. You know, him from North Carolina while he came in and wanted to check us out. And that's another cool thing. You know, we want to be a destination, not just
Yeah.
a store where you can come. And that's been the coolest thing too. You know, people from out of town. We've had people from New Jersey that are like, "Hey, my buddy told me about you guys, so I'm gonna come check you guys out."
Yeah, the word's out for
Yeah,
sure. Like, you know, I'm
exactly.
starting to see more and more people. Like I said, that people popped up the other day, and I don't know who they even were, but they knew who y'all were
Right.
before I even said the name. And so, yeah. So, I mean, if you want to go get a hat at Double R and meet Robert Plant and Bill Murray and Braxton Keith, yeah, I mean, the odds are Braxton may be back in there.
Yeah.
Like, he's around here quite a bit.
Right.
That's pretty cool. And that's a neat part about this business too, that I think a lot of people from the outside don't get to see, is that, you know, there's something about the country industry and what I'll call, like, you know, NASCAR and some of these things where these are southern type of industries where the people involved are just so chill and cool, and they're nice and friendly, and it's fun to get to meet them. And they get it down here that, you know, they're gonna bump into people. I told you earlier, my wife called you the McConaughey of hat pressers. And yeah, all right. I was like, well, I don't know, maybe he's pressed Matt's hat.
Well,
That'd be cool.
Well,
Yeah.
heck, and to your point, I mean, Cowboy's cool again, you know, especially
Yeah.
nowadays with Yellowstone, of course,
Yeah.
being on TV all over the place. You know, young guys, Braxton Keith coming up.
Yeah.
It's people want to wear cowboy hats, and for the longest, I feel like everybody was just wanting to wear a cap. You know, especially late '90s, 2000s, caps were the biggest things, and it's kind of cool to see the trend where now everybody are trading for, you know, a cowboy hat now.
Yeah,
and wanna
it's
go that
back
route.
for
Yep.
sure, and there's a lot of options. So, well, I mean, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show.
Yeah.
No, thank
It's
you.
been a
Thank
lot of
you.
fun. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's a little bit educational, a lot of maybe some laughs for people and some good stuff on there. If you want to find these guys, and I would highly recommend that you do, if you're in the market for a hat, and it doesn't matter where the hell you are. You can, like they were saying earlier, you could be in Australia or wherever.
Right.
You can find these guys online on the Double R Hat House.
Yep.
Right.
DoubleRhatHouse.com.
And you can order it there, or you can come into the ATX.
Oh, yeah.
And come see them in person, and which I would recommend, because then you get to see them and then wear the hat wherever you want to go and go listen
right.
to a lot of great music and eat a lot of good food. So thanks for coming
No,
by.
thank you, man. This is
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. This is awesome.
And we'll have you guys back on at some point in time. And you know, if you like the show, hey, we'd love for you to, you know, hit that little subscribe button and like and follow us, and we'll stay in touch and see you next time on the next show.